Cool. Everyone ready? I just asked that. Just ingrained in my mind. We begin our descent into the topic with the worth of Franz Kafka in his story Before the Law. He describes the following in 1915. Before the law sits a gatekeeper. To this gatekeeper comes a man who is asked to gain entry to the law. But the gatekeeper says that he cannot grant him entry at the moment. The man thinks about it, and then asks if he'll be allowed to come in later on. It is possible, says the gatekeeper, but not now. At the moment, the gate to the law stands open, as always, and the gatekeeper walks to the side, so the man bends over in order to see through the gate into the inside. When the gatekeeper notices that, he laughs and says, if it tempts you so much, try in spite of my prohibition, but take note, I am powerful, and I am only the most lowly gatekeeper. But from room to room stand gatekeepers, each more powerful than the other. I can't endure even one glimpse of the third. The man from the country is not expecting such difficulties. The law should be accessible to everyone, he thinks, but he decides it'd be better to wait until he gets permission to go inside. The gatekeeper gives him a stool and allows him to sit down on the side in the front of the gate. There he sits for days and years. He makes many attempts to be let in, and he wears the gatekeeper out with his requests. The man who has equipped himself with many things for his journey spends everything to win over the gatekeeper. The latter takes it all, but when he does so, says, I am taking this only so that you do not think I have failed to do anything. During many years, the man observes the gatekeeper almost continuously. He forgets the other gatekeepers, and this one seems to him the only obstacle for entry into the law. He curses the unlucky circumstance. In the first years, thoughtlessly and out loud. Later, as he grows old, he still mumbles to himself. Finally, his eyesight grows weak, and he does not know whether things are really darker around him or whether his eyes are merely deceiving him. But he recognizes now the darkness and illumination which breaks indistinguishably out of the gateway to the law. Now he no longer has much time to live. Before his death, he gathers in his head all his experiences of the entire time up to the one question which he has not yet put to the gatekeeper. He waves to him since he can no longer lift up his stiffening body. The gatekeeper has to bend way down to him. What do you still want to know then? Asks the gatekeeper. You are instalable. Everyone strives after the law, says the man. So how in these many years has no one except me requested entry? The gatekeeper sees that the man is already dying, and in order to reach his diminishing sense of hearing, he shouts at him. Here no one else can gain entry, since the entrance is assigned only to you. I'm going now to close it. Kafka's story exposes the emptiness of the law's form, the secret law that is only exists in relation to construction or expression of our desire. Desires are what construct law. Our desires both obey and disobey. They are created in relation to one another, what we call the law. No matter the man's actions, he's already within the law. What is behind the door is no different than the room he sits waiting. His desire will disobey the gatekeeper to wait patiently for a turn to express the internal nature of the law is only construction created by the subject. Glen 07. Kafka's man of the country died without ever wavering his belief that there was something inside. This is a secret law. There is no inside. The law exists only in relation to the law. Is the individual unconscious construct existing in the subject of law. The man from the country died obeys in general with law when he takes a seat. He obeys only his own law by not entering the gatekeeper's prohibition. The doorkeeper's prohibition. The man conforms to the actions of the constructed law. There's a split desire. One prohibition comes on. The law is independent, but the man himself, the internal struggle between the self and desire of the law, is divided desire within the man's desire on one hand to enter the law, and on the other hand, desire to hold true to respect the law, not to transgress by action. His tension places the man further within the law. Even as he sits on the stool, there's nothing to enter. The man is already within the law. Therefore, I affirm jury nullification as a form of experimentation with the law. The law is an all-encompassing machine that describes not only just the judicial, but also the social sphere. This makes the law an open-ended series of connected components and assemblage that is generating synthesis of the other spheres of information perpetually. Kafka's understanding of the law describes and dismantles these components of the law through writing familiar concepts in ways that deny their common logic. Jury nullification is framed in this context as Kafka's practice perpetually nullifying components and creating new connections within the law at the same time. This nullification of law allows productive critique of system of power and the very circuits that exist through understanding an oppressor binary. The oppressor-oppressed binary is not sufficient to understand power relations within disciplinary systems. Bogue 03. The law is a social machine. Every person is an agent of law. Every locale is a site of justice. An open-ended series of connected components, generation, synthesis to make it possible to perpetual movement. Kafka offers a critique by extracting assemblage with the assemblage rather than commenting on social representations. Kafka's experiments on them in trial must be considered as a report of just experiments on the machine, and in dismantling, we believe only in Kafka experimentation without interpretation of significance. It transcribes social relations into assemblage means to rewrite familiar codes in the institution and unfamiliar terms of the social machine. The Kafka defamiliarizes the law by depriving it of its contents. Logic law is an empty form without content. The mere system of law, which logic rules, evidence, and verdicts is revealed to be power, unrelated to norms of justice and fairness, regulated by hierarchy of forces, an inescapable network of punitive agents. Kafka shows the power is not inherently hierarchical in its relational, pervading the judicial machine, involving all individual components of the machine in the field of force of the law, is not only a machine for possessing defendants, but a desire machine which power and desires imbue through every circuit. That the problem of power is not only one of those who have power, those who don't, but the liminal investments that categorize all power relations, the position of oppressor and oppressed, or a secondary nature of the primary circuit of power desire. Therefore, the role of the ballot is to vote for who best performatively and methodologically proliferates textual assemblage theories within academic spaces. The resolution is an assemblage, a constantly expanding and synthesis producing fluid structure of knowledge. Within the assemblage, there are no hierarchy, no interpretation of the text of the resolutions, and prioritize and give a privilege over another. Assemblage theory is necessary within academic spaces to understand diverging perspectives and proliferate the differences that make our understanding possible. This strategy is also necessary to allow us to reinterpret and critique dominant narratives and understandings within academic fields such as debate. The affirmative affirmation of resolution is hermeneutic or interpretive strategy based in minor literature such as Kafka's work that allows the injection of experimental strategies and textual assemblage of the resolution to deconstruct dominant understandings of the topic. Scourge 13. Bringing assemblage approach to the dialogue with hermeneutics, this theoretical and methodological synthesis allows me to build a framework without imposing particular philosophical line of thought. It's fundamental to critically interrogate, speak back to theory through intellectual inquiry. An assemblage lens allows me to view without any self-evident point of departure. Conscious to colonialism, which often assumes a character of an invisible act with science, can thus be unmasked as contested complex with self-enclosed totalities. Established perspective, which principles of connection, heterogeneity, equip us to move beyond hierarchical understandings or attention positions, cultivate complex processes and relations involved in the production to even the most detailed categories, avoid self, imputing analytic divisions a priori. History should not be denied, but see differently, less linear and morally complexly assembled, and reassembled. Hermeneutics enables me to understand and critique in particular assemblage, critical juncture, interrogating, negotiating, contested, a continuous translation between cultural worlds of meaning, growth out of the daily text to translate not only within cultural communities. Human existence is not only a mode of interpretation or hermeneutic, but a mode of translation, which is once linguistic, cultural, political, and historical, and cultural difference as an investigated category opens the hermeneutic terrain and negotiation contestation without resorting to boundary oppositions, which are produced by essentializing concepts of culture. This throws open the door to cultural world-making, a process which also begins the act of interpretation. And the affirmist reading of Kafka and the understanding of the law is a hermeneutic method of minor literature. It is neither literary nor critical and requires the transformation of literature so that both categories are overcome and we disorganize the understanding of the content of the text, such as Kafka's use of law. This forms the affirmist hermeneutics as the opening of text to pure content that transforms reality rather than being a conceptual abstract metaphor. This strategy opens space to becoming a difference that allow radical engagement in textual forms. White and Hellrich, 98. Dualism entire antipodal reading of Kafka that is neither literary nor critical. It requires transformation of the critic and literature so that both categories overcome a radical hermeneutic endeavor. Kafka is a written of minor literature, a self-generating, transforming expression machine capable of disorganizing its own forms and disorganizing its forms contents in order to liberate pure contents that mix with the expression in a single intense matter. Major literature goes from content to expression, but a minor literature begins with the expression itself and doesn't conceptualize until afterward. The expression must break form. Literature transforms reality. Kafka kills metaphors, all symbolism, all signification. It is not a question of becoming that includes a maximum of differences, a difference of intensity. Writing for Kafka signifies union with desire beyond laws, states, regimes, a political desire that transforms, questions all situations.
Can I get the papers? I'm pretty sure there were cards in there that weren't in here. Like right before the Scourge card, there was like a different, something else that you had.
No, this
Maybe
is
I'm just fully wrong.
Yeah,
Okay, that's fine.
You're wrong.
Okay. Alright, ready?
Mm-hmm.
Why vote AF?
I think the AF is a productive methodology to open.
You think the AF is productive?
Yeah.
Why
Ooh,
should we
K link. Huh?
No, I'm just asking why should we be productive?
Yeah, we think that the AF is a good. Okay,
consistent with
I'll use good, right? Good methodology to understand minoritarian perspectives of issues.
Let's talk about, so you say we performatively and methodologically resist oppression. What does it mean to performatively resist oppression?
Yeah, so we think the AF resist oppression.
Performatively and methodologically, like, embrace your role of the ballot. What does it mean to performatively do that?
So I think the 1AC was an instance of performance. I also think that I'm getting into that. AC codifies performance as something that is minoritarian in nature, which means that things of do you want me to explain or not?
Performance is just something that's minoritarian.
In this particular instance of the affirmative, I don't speak to performance as a general.
What does it mean to be minoritarian?
Yeah, I was getting there. So the idea of minoritarianism is something that is in contrast to majoritarianism. For example, it is not the imposing upon text. It is not the imposing of your belief onto a text. For example, the word the, you impose what you think the word the is, and cast it as universal. Minoritarian is saying that the word the can mean different things to other people and impose it upon us.
You say that your affirmation is a hermeneutic, and there are no like hierarchies in that affirmation. Can you explain like how hierarchies relate to the AF?
Yeah, so minor strategies are kind of like breaking down of hierarchies, right? We'd say hierarchies are majoritarian functions, which are bad because they stratify the ability for us to like understand difference and create like creative things.
So what like approach do we take to break down hierarchies? Do we recognize that hierarchies are like exist in society now? Yeah,
we're obviously we understand that they exist. The Bogue and Glenn evidence is particularly good on this question about how the idea of affirming the law as experimentation, especially jury nullification, is a form of breaking down things that are already always connecting to each other.
Okay, what card in the AF says that jury nullification is good?
None. My analysis does.
Why is nullification specifically good?
Yeah, so I think the Bogues and Glenn evidence is good on that question.
You just said that evidence does not say the word nullification.
It doesn't say the word, it's obviously a particular form of nullification. If you want me to explain how it works to nullify, I can do that. Sure. If you don't.
What is nullification?
Yeah, so nullification is, in the terms of the AF advocacy, a contextualization of what happens in assemblages, which is like how things are connected together in like a fluid way. They kind of are always constantly connecting to one another and then disconnecting from one another.
Nullification is fluid?
Yes. Nullification is that fluidity.
Okay.
It is that.
So do you get offense from just like the reading of the story at the top of the 1AC?
Yes.
Okay. Will you defend hypothetical government action?
Nope.
Okay. Let's talk about the Glenn evidence. Can you just like explain to me what this says?
Yeah, so Glenn analyzes Kafka's story that I read and indicates that it shows that desire is what formulates our relationship to the law. For example, I may desire to punch you in the face, but I also desire not to punch you in the face or the desire act against me to not punch you in the face because of social norms. Things like that are kind of what makes up the idea of the law.
So what's the implication?
The implication is that the law is formulated everywhere within our minds. That's formulated mostly by Boggs or Bogue.
Wait, the law is formulated everywhere in our minds?
Yeah, the law is everywhere.
So what does that mean?
The law is part of our desire, meaning anywhere our desire is, the law is.
Okay. So what does that do for the 1AC?
You starting for that?
Yeah, I started already.
That means that it just contextualizes what I mean by jury nullification. We think that's a minor form of jury nullification. That's the advocacy.
Wait, sorry, what? How does that relate to the law being formed by desire?
Yes, so we say that is minoritarian because it is a counter to common conceptions of the law as judicial.
So you get offense by just saying that the law is formed by desire?
I don't just say things. Like, there's obviously a lot of analysis, warranted evidence, and a reading of an article.
Wait, so you say law is formed by desire. That is offense for you because that is a minoritarian statement?
Well, yeah, you asked that, like, the Boggs and Glenn Evans are tied to the reading of Kafka. You asked me if Kafka is offense. Kafka is probably offense because of the injection of minoritarian literature into the resolution. That's my advocacy.
Why is minoritarianism good?
Yes, so I think the role of ballot evidence is particularly good in,
Can you explain the Schwartz card?
Yeah, so the Schwartz card indicates that in academic spaces, the combination of hermeneutics, aka interpretation, and assemblages, i.e. the fluidity of connections, is something that is productive in enabling us to understand and break down dominant critical narratives.
Why?
Because it allows us the ability to inject them with things that are not dominant. For i.e., the idea that the resolutions like in this instance, the resolutions understood in particular ways, particular modes, and they like topicality and things like that say that has to be that way. So our argument is that this allows us to break down those kind of things and allow other narratives.
So what do you do to break them down?
Yeah, I think the injection of Kafka, like the AF.
Reading your AF.
Yep. What's it called?
It's called quarters NC. It's 4 in case.
4 off. Did you say 4 off?
Yeah.
Okay, give me a second. Let me open it real quick. Okay, cool.
Alright.
Sorry, I guess you had 2.
What?
I guess you had 2.
Yeah.
minutes.
It's fine. I'll get now.
4 off.
First off, the word pick replace jury nullification with jury discretion. It competes. We do the affidavit replace jury nullification with jury discretion. You do not get a permit. We would disaster that rhetoric in the plan. The CP tells 100% of the rest of the affidavit that solves the affidavit. This discretion is better. Regular 11 jury nullification is merely an occasional byproduct of a jury's right to determine. The law once one understands this right, jury nullification loses much of its usefulness. I prefer to speak of jury discretion, and discretion is more accurate, and nullification destroys jury independence. Independently, terms becoming regular. 11 jury nullification destroys jury independence because it treats jury system making process binary terms either the jury nullified or didn't. The jury goes through a much more complex process. Considers all the circumstances, comes to a final judgment. Some members may vote not guilty because they see evidence as others when they begin with the law is understood to be meaningless to say the jury nullified market and nullified link turns the app because it constructs nullification into a binary either the jury nullified or did not, which recreates the hierarchies that he criticizes. Also, the app has to be held accountable for the rhetoric when it is key to negate representations frame the way that the app is implemented. So severing representations is terrible for fairness. And secondly, it determines the way that the when you see advocacy functions. Obviously, if you defend rhetoric in the app that is harmful for becoming, it means that I should to read this out. So that second is the anti-blackness critique delusion itself, which is parasitic on the black body. It assumes a flexibility that allows you to just abandon your identity. The black body is continually denied this flexibility. Massa 14 whiteness monumentalizes the subjective capacity in that direct proportion to black incapacity to parasitic relationship is the foundation of anti-blackness post-modern epistemology. Necessity, the ontological construction of the black body is slave. They rely on the incapacity of black subjectivity to imagine its own possibility. So that white capacity can maintain its own incoherence to imagine possibility for itself. A prime example could be seen in Toulouse's becoming, which we refuse. Be shackled by static identity, becoming is inaccessible to the black body because it requires independent subjectivity. The incapacity of the black body to engage in this form of becoming must be maintained so that whiteness can have the model of incapacity to compare itself to, and some which is grant whiteness potentiality, which denies the history of racism. Curry 13, the potentiality of whiteness is the jihad of an ahistorical group. Become awareness of the world. Become aware of what is actual whiteness is morally obscure from being seen as is determined what could be the supposed as an erroneous view of the white race, which includes the reality of white supremacy. The affidavit dehumanizes those deemed outside of the system, making ethics impossible. Link turns all of the arguments about hierarchy since you recreate those. Curry 13, racism is outside of ethical deliberation to rationally determine relationship between human beings. Man, the anthropological basis of humanity is the origin, the oppressive conceptualization of the other, born out of the exclusive morality of white humanity against barbarism, and is the more rock bottom of dehumanization. civilization, commanding morality to conform and justify the resistance as a human. The alternative is to destroy the current postmodern template of humanity in favor of an anti-ethical stance. Curry 13, anti-ethics to demystify the present concept of man, the axiomatic rector of white existence, which allows whites to claim that they're the civilized guardians, rejection of white virtue allows the black to sow the seeds towards liberation. The pastoral free to overthrow the principles that suggest that liberation are immoral, expose the inhumanity of white humanity. There is no negotiating the horizons of white supremacy. Now the role of the bound is to resist oppression and engage in important concrete discussions. Elijah Smith in 13, abstraction distance the conversation, the reality black debaters deal with everyday judges, defend my student being alleged norms, but have competitors do intellectual gymnastics, escape hard conversations, the students should not have to justify the version is bad debate, not just game, but the learning environment, liberatory, potential third topicality, interpretation of the opposite, and hypothetical government action in the resolution. This does not require the use of any style, which solves his arguments that why reading the story in the app is good. However, you also have to defend government action. Part 201, American Heritage Dictionary defines result course of action determined by legislative result is emphasis used in policy debate, and jury nullification is a discretionary act that is not legally sanctioned. Criminal law dictionary, jury nullification is a discretionary act not legally sanctioned of the jury. Now, violation first you concede and prosecute, not define hypothetical government action. Also, you independently get often from reading the story of the Wednesday, which is extra topicality, independent voting first. It destroys negative ground. The resolution is decided for an equitable basis of ground for both sides. If you get to choose anything outside of that, then it makes it impossible to read negative arguments. Also, predictability. You can choose from anything out of infinite possible outcomes, makes it impossible to predict. Now, that benefits to my interpretation. Their interpretation avoids relevant discussion of issues. This type of abstraction legitimates oppression and makes social change impossible. Curry 14. Despite the potential debate, the point of real consequence performance on by weighing an LDA are confronted with their attempts to get into concrete problems in our society's ideal theories, exceptional concepts between actual problems that we frame problems theoretically from many empirical phenomenon. And ideals just a representation, and concrete real-world plans are key for marginalized groups to resist oppression. Failure to have a concrete option we can debate against guarantees that problems continue and efforts for change backfire. Steve 70. Lack of strategy is a problem. We need to elaborate how actions fit into a plan without a specific elaboration. We will end up making bad decisions or press people to get involved in the movement. We stop for change in the last vision where winning would look like people can respond to examples better than theory. And strategic use of the law is key to understand and deconstruct colonialism does not require moralizing it. Smith in 12, because the system is inherently colonial, attempts to moralize the law feel we can challenge the assumption the law will reflect our morals and use the law for strategic effect. We might be free to change our strategies, be effective strategic effect, build our community outside the colonial state. In high theory without a concrete solution, doing strategic to failure by abstracting from the details necessary for a workable solution. Brian 12, what giving me just indications that we do these activities making real difference, protect them all the other sort of abstractions go to carrying out critiques and doubts. Social formation report proposing a real alternative phase 1 also radical critique phase 2 question mark phase 3 revolution complete social transformation market transformation in an anti-politics mentality where we reject the state use of the law to prevent public resistance to oppression and creates authoritarianism which outweighs the case. Boggs 97 depoliticized struggles, false sense of empowerment as well as public engagement and complete capacity to work for social change. Urgent problems will go unsolved. Professor more honestly traces part of hardly means colonization will be less of reality market at reality. Independently, the app also accepts limits on the speech. For example, he read a 6-minute 1AC and accepted the limits of prep time and cross-act, which means some type of limits are inevitable. Just a question of what type of limits are best for debate independently. He said in cross-act that reading the app was good for productivity and that it was a good method, which means that is a valuable standard in debate. If I win that my T-interm is good for that, then it solves the app. Now, impact drop their debater specifically on T. Holden McCallum for the interim drop their resolution set out what the advocacy for never to defend their views. Also runs already skipped in the beginning. Advocacy is my ability to generate NC offense to use competing interpretation ability by arbitrary judgment based on preference rather than argumentation. Encourages race to the bottom, which debaters what judges call tolerance for questionable argumentation. No, RB as the incentivized debaters like, oh, did you go all in theory, click on substance clash on other foes. Sorry, I'm going to read another fairness impact to the T. So not defending government action also destroys fairness because there are no tangible negatives outs to link to the app. The 1 AR can be extremely vague and shifty to as a link out of disouts and not specify exactly what the advocacy links to. Unfairness independently outweighs the app. First controls the internal link. We can have a good discussion about the app. My competitors incentive to debate is skewed by unfairness in the first place, which I cannot engage. Also, it's most constitutive to the role of the about who decide who did the better debating in the first place. You are missing an internal link between why your impacts matter and why the judge should vote for them. Why your impacts matter and why the judge should vote for them. Now, Capcake. The app focuses on becoming a narcissistic individual and destroys the possibility for collective resistance. Champion 3 individuals concerned with subjectivity is too much narcissism. We are not freely voting, capable of deciding sovereignty, autonomy, control, and are heavily instituted conditions solved only by a reawakening of politics. Depoliticized obsession with others results from universals toward particulate answers, marketed answers. Now focus on the sum, which is overlooked that we are all prefigured by global capitalism, which was just a thing that our identity can be fluid, so that the poor will just keep slaving away to the rich man. 95 intellectual economic certainties must challenge work on protect itself from becoming commodity. Lines of flight or theoretical political devices, the highest critical order, merely phantasmic model for writing. What does it say? The fantastic possibility of non-linear passion domain thought is problematic. Market and problematic. Neoliberal globalization is the root cause of every major impact I do. 98 arguments present globalization will cause problems moving that cause Dutch treatment of symptoms and avoid diseases. Modern militarization and weaponry backs destruction, ozone, war, deforestation, reckless industrialization things. Globalization, racism, and jingoism spread worldwide. Limits causing limits assemblages and the ability to express your own identity because you are hampered by material structures, and that is impossible in the first place. The alternative to reinvigorated criticism with class, the academy has drifted into practical relevance to its fixation on difference. McLaren, academics, radical process, remain oblivious to radical discursive maneuvers, do nothing to further the structures against what continues to be material. Their tests radicalism or be led by their own class position manifestation within the left level public sphere. The petty bourgeoisie of social changes, the intellectuals, machines, displacing class analysis, resuscitated, sustained interrogation of capitalism, globalized forms, and overcome narratives that are social transformation, hopelessly impractical or obsolete.
The time?
Yeah.
Cool.
I just did not read the last
It's fine.
card, obviously.
Everyone ready? Why is discretion better?
Discretion is better because jury nullification assumes a binary where either they nullified or they didn't. Discretion affirms individual subjectivity because it's up to an individual choice.
Okay, why do we care about individuals?
Well, the argument is that things should be treated in like a fluid manner as per the 1AC. Nullification inherently limits that because it's binary, which is part of
Wait,
the
so your
hierarchy
impact
that-
is related to individuals, but we care about fluidity.
No, the point is not that. No. The argument is not that like it allows individuals to be separate. The argument is that it allows people to have fluidity because it's not.
Okay,
binary
what about
of
nullification specifically makes it construct binaries?
It's like literally either you nullified the law or you did not. It's like the definition of a binary.
Okay. Then on the K, you're making an argument that assemblage of theory is parasitic on the black body. What does that mean?
It means that the claim that we can just like abstractly deconstruct these hierarchies and embrace a fluidity of identity ignores the material reality of oppression that black people have historically faced.
Okay. Then what does the next card say?
Which card?
The assemblages grant whiteness potentiality.
So
What is a warrant?
what is the warrant for why assemblages grant whiteness potentiality?
Yeah.
Because the definition of whiteness is like fluidity and shiftiness. Like I think that warrant is like pretty clear.
No, fluidity and shiftiness is not good enough for me.
Okay. So the Curry evidence says that one of the main things that has made whiteness problematic is its inability to recognize the historical conditions of anti-blackness.
Historical conditions. Okay.
Yeah.
So what does the next card say? What is the alternative? What's
The
it going to be
alternative is
anti-ethical?
to rupture the current postmodern template.
What is the
of ethics.
current postmodern template of ethics?
So it's like all philosophy that was developed during postmodernism coming from white academies in America and Europe.
Okay, so only white people develop postmodernism?
No, it's not that only white people develop postmodernism, but that the postmodern template is inherently predicated on whiteness because it already assumes a position.
Okay,
that
would
the
Curry
black
say
subject
Wilderson?
is
Would
not.
Curry say Wilderson is bad?
Would Curry say Wilderson is bad?
Yeah.
I mean, like I've talked to Curry and he doesn't like Wilderson very much.
Okay, then that's an answer. So, T.
But they also have like differences on specific claims, for example.
Yeah, of course. That's what I was asking. T. You say high theory abstracts away. What is high theory, and how is this different from low theory?
I don't think that low theory is a thing. High
Oh,
theory-
you are wrong. That was the affirmative. So what is high theory then? What is high theory then?
High theory. Sorry, which evidence specifically are you?
This is the Brian 12 evidence.
Oh, so high theory is anything that does not propose a concrete political strategy for action.
Does your evidence indicate that that is the definition of high theory?
Yeah, the Bryant card is like we need tangible plans and policies that solve things. Without those, you're not solving anything.
Cool. is the exact text of your insert?
The app must defend hypothetical government action and the resolution. Insert resolution text.
Okay, 55 seconds left.
Are you reading anything new?
Nope.
Okay, order.
I'm just gonna go the pick, or the AF, the pick, the curry K, the cap K, and then topicality.
You're starting on the pick.
No, I'm starting on the AF, sorry.
Okay.
AF, pick, curry K, cap K, T.
So,
AF, pick, curry K, cap K, T. Cool. So it's gonna start on the roll of the ballot of the AF. Everyone ready? Like every other debate of this term, he has screwed up and conceded assemblage theory, rolled about in this debate before who has performed methodologically proliferary sexual assemblage theories in the academic spaces. He has conceded the scorched evidence, our scorched evidence in case the resolution assemblage is constantly expanding since no interpreting text is given privilege and throw. We, like in privilege, and like give it privilege, and give that particular idea as something that is good. This is necessary in academic spaces to create dominant narrative that controls the interlink to any of his critiques about how we need to deconstruct the understandings that already exist, and that is only be able to done through the affirmative understanding of assemblage theory and rewriting these kind of things. You have conceded this enormous claim, which means you view the debate of the question of assemblage theory. He's also conceded the affirmative strategies, the mind of literature, the laws to deconstruct dominant understanding of the topic. He's also conceded the white and Howard evidence in case the affidavit neither literary nor critical and rise for transformation. We impose text upon us rather than imposing upon the text itself. This open space is becoming a difference which are key because they need to be able to become negative or become anti-capitalist. We only need to be able to do the affirmative first. Then on the top of the case, he has conceded the Glenn and Rogue evidence. Glenn evidence indicates the conflicts both the emptiness of laws form. The laws only formulate our desire within our minds. It also means that the Rogue evidence indicates that the law is all around us. It is all-encompassing machine because of it being tied to our desires. It is an open and series of components, and that means that we being able to critique system of power can only be done through this. The oppressor-oppressed binary is not good and it is not explanatory in the question of power on the pick. First, there's no reason the affirmative actually cares about individuals. This is a question of assemblage theory first and foremost. It's not a question about individual. It's a question of what it reflects upon the assemblages of the individual that exists. It's the articulation that we gave him the 1AC and the articulation I gave him cross. He said that it turns independence, but one is argumentatively discretion allows choice, but it's a false pretense when you're in the criminal justice system when everything is already predicated on not having a choice. It's already going to be binary within your system. You do not solve the root cause of this. Only the affirmative can muddy the system, but that it actually exists. Then on permutation, do both. Reread the text of the affirmative within the negative. This is no severance, not a severance of my reputation, but saying that we should do both at the same time. This is the fluidity of the interpretation of text. That is the entirety of the affirmative. You shouldn't have conceded it. Okay. One, through reading the text onto you rather than on the imposition onto the text solves. This is the White and Howard's analysis that did it. It says you are not imposing yourself upon the text, but instead allowing the text imposed upon you. That means that the losing assemblage is not parasitic in the black body. For example, the gatekeeper could stand at the door and say that this is the kind of representation for a black body is them not being able to access civil society. That could be the analysis of the story actually makes, but he does not actually contest this. That means that it is a question of how you read it, not what it says normatively. There is no objective text. That's the entirety of the F. Then assemblage grant whiteness potentiality. Our scorch evidence is key on this rewriting historical narrative to be controlled by the idea of actually having assemblage being able to rewrite the minoritarian destruction. If he thinks that this is not true, then you are just not in the minoritarian mindset. He's conceded that he's also two. There's no becoming in the affirmative between needs or articulated link. You should not allow to articulate links to the two and R just because he went for like 4 different Ks. The argument that there's no becoming in the affirmative is a question of assemblage theory. We do not say the word becoming at all very much in the when I see it. If we do, it is only tangential, not related to the actual advocacy text. He said the alternative to be anti-ethical, but perm to the F and nullify the negative. It allows it to be anti-ethical at the same time. Also, Smith evidence is specific to debate text, which means the resolutional analysis of the AF comes first. Cap K. Permutation do both understand the academics from the affirmative, academics from the affirmative, of the affirmative perspective. He can see the scorched evidence, which means the alternative to 100% solve the aft. The all is the re-understanding of academics, which means it controls the internal link to the question. Our scorched evidence is really specific on how the combination of hermeneutics and the idea of interpretation of text allows us to be able to understand things. That means the permutation do both solves. He also assembles theory explains better. He's man out in five evidence in the case that it comes to line to fight you're under capitalism, but we only understand the undercuts and because of the kind of assemblage theory that exists that capitalism is a kind of specter of capitalism. Also, you can see the 1AC proves that I solve capitalism because the Goggs and Glenn evidence in case we break down these kind of hierarchies, it allows us to break down the idea of understanding material things is good. T. Permutations do both make the affirmative viscous, like honey. Assemblages are always going to be viscous. It's always going to be kind of understanding that exists in the middle. Also, we are non-topical in the face. Majority minoritarians say that we are topical. You're just a majoritarian. Also, we are not abstraction. The Curry evidence. That's the tag of the White and Howard evidence that indicates that he can see that is analysis about the text. Then on the Stephen evidence, we are playing. It's just a question of what you mean by the real world is subjective in terms of the minoritarian strategies. And the Smith evidence, our scorch evidence indicates that Smith is the idea of colonial law can only be solved specifically. It says colonism through the idea of understanding things. I think this might be the Boggs evidence as well. That indicates colonialism can only be solved through the understanding of power relations instead of power structures, like he does. Like theory abstracts away. We are low theory means no solvency argument. We are based on a kind of minoritarian conception. We do not see the state is all around us. That is our Glenn analysis. I mean, the affirmative. All assemblages have some chunks in that. It has to be friction like molasses, which turns the idea of his speech, limit speech. Also, there's no tangible negative disads. You have DAs. You read them. Cut more ev, fam.
On the cap K, what's the perm?
Cap K, permutation do both. Understand the academics of the negatives interpretation. Understand academics of capitalism through the F. Understanding of
How does that work?
How does it work?
Yeah.
So yeah, we would analyze the alternative in capitalism through the hermeneutic interpretative strategy of the 1AC.
Okay.
We think
so these arguments that you extend from the app, what's the implication of the extension of scorch?
Yeah, so scorch is a justification for the role of the ballot in a framing issue.
Yeah, okay. What is the warrant?
The warrant? The warrant of scorch is that the analysis we talked about in cross-ex, the idea of hermeneutics and assemblage theory can be combined, and it's productive for academic spaces because it allows us to rewrite like dominant narratives.
And then the next one is the white card.
Yeah, the White and Hellrich evidence provides basically solvency for the app. It also indicates that the app is neither literary nor critical, and that we impose the text upon us rather than imposing on the text. This is necessary to open spaces of becoming indifference.
What does it mean to impose the text upon us?
Yeah, so impose the text upon us is like the thing we talked about in cross-ex, the reading word the, you would understand it differently than I. We do not oppose an objective understanding of the text onto the text. Instead, it's something that we understand personally. So also probably relates to the desire and the law argument.
What's the implication of the desire of the law argument as is extended?
Basically, it's just I just extend it so I can cross-apply it on other flows. I think most of the implications are drawn on other flows. Oh, and then the law is all around us, especially in the round.
Alright. Overview. Anti-blackness. Kick. Cap framework.
Overview,
Overview.
anti-blackness,
Yeah.
cap, pig, T.
Yeah.
Wait, pick cap T?
Yeah, pick cap T.
Okay.
Sorry.
Pick cap T. Curry, pick, cap, T. That's it. Cool.
Again. Not going for the anti-blackness K, the oldest conditional. There's no conditionality arguments in the last speech, so I do not have to go for it. Now go to the pick. Extend the regular evidence that jury discretion is comparatively better than jury nullification because it does not promote a binary of either nullifying or not. He had a couple bad, really blippy responses here. The first one is that the app is not talking about individuals, it's talking about assemblages. Yes, I agree with this. Nullification is uniquely bad in terms of assemblages because it either assumes the binary of you nullified or you're not, which is not allow the type of fluidity that the 1AC is talking about. The pick literally solves the entirety of the app, which means that aids to avoid any risk of a disadd to any of the other critiques as a reason to negate because I co-opt the entirety of the one because I co-opt the entirety of the 1AC, but also as a reason why my solvency outweighs. And you say that discretion is a choice and it's not a root cause in the prison industrial complex because it's comparatively better under your framework because when we talk about nullification, it's either you nullify the law or you did not. But when it is up to the juror's discretion, that assumes the fluidity of identity. This root cause argument is nonsensical because the app also does not resolve the root cause. It's a question of comparative solvency. Now the last argument is proven to both at the same time because it's not severance. You've conceded literally two arguments for the one severance, for why it is severance. First is that you have to be held accountable for the discourse of the 1AC. It's key to negative ground because you're framing representations now. I will impact those fairness arguments later. And secondly, you've conceded that the discourse of the 1AC affects the way that the 1AC advocacy is implemented. You cannot just sever out of it because your original, in order to vote for you under your role of the ballot, you have to affirm the advocacy as it was presented into the app. My argument is a disadd to that advocacy. It's pretty game over right there. Now go to the capitalism critique. The framing issue is that you have extended a lot of arguments in the last speech for why assemblage theory is good. It can break down hierarchies. However, these assume an extremely ideal position of the world where people are not already obscured, people are not already obstructed by the material oppression of capitalism. The story of the critique is that we cannot just we cannot just disassemble the text or abstractly break down these hierarchies. The people are suffering the material conditions of capitalism right now. There are two conceded link arguments. The first is the Chamsey evidence, which is that a focus on assemblages destroys the possibility for collective resistance because it is a form of individual narcissism and subjectivity where we keep affirming our own fluidity of identity. We would never actually work together with other people. This internal link turns all of your arguments for why assemblages are good methods for resisting oppression because it assures that under your interpretation, people can never assemble in the first place. You just made a lot of generic cross-applications from the 1AC, but did not actually line by line my arguments. The second is the man evidence. It says that assemblages are exactly what the neoliberal elite want us to think is a good thing because that will keep us slaving away under the system of capitalism where we never do anything productive to change it because we think that we as individuals can change our identity to become whatever we want. However, that is not possible given the material reality of capitalism. Now you now line by line your arguments. The permutation is nonsensical. You have conceded two link arguments. It's also nonsensical. So those are obviously dissads to the permits. Obviously, it's also nonsensical to embrace a material understanding of the history of class relations while we're also focusing on the fluidity of identity and hierarchies that they want to see endorses. And you say that is understanding because the only way that we understand capitalism is because of assemblage theory. No, I have impact on this understanding. Capitalism is not formed because of because of these abstract hierarchies in society. The assemblages that the 1AC talks about it is the tangible material conditions of oppression that people actually face. There is absolutely no warrant for this. There's no warrant for this argument. Why is uniquely key to solve capitalism? You say that you break down hierarchies. I've already impact turned that argument. Now go to the alternative, extending McLaren evidence that we need to fix away. We need to move away from leftist abstract critiques and start focusing on the material reality of oppression. This is completely incompatible with the 1AC because he denies that those type of things are important. It's game over on the cap gag. All I have to win is impact framing that it outweighs the app. Extend the Naidu evidence. That is the impact that neoliberal globalization is the root cause of every meaningful impact. It destroys the ability to destroy assemblages or break down these type of hierarchies that the 1AC talks about in the first place because if people are suffering things like poverty or class-based oppression caused by globalization, that destroys the possibility of becoming framework. The framing issue here is that fairness is the biggest impact in the round. He has conceded 4 reasons why fairness comes first. First is that fairness is most constitutive to the role of, you can flow these as an overview. Fairness is most constitutive to the role of the judge to decide the winner of the round. Even if you win, that your role of the ballot is a good thing. That does not mean that the judge should vote on it. You are missing that internal link, which means that all of his role of the ballot arguments that were extended in the 1AR have absolutely no implication because they are not specifically tailored to what the judge should do, which is to vote on a competitive activity. Second is that fairness frames the way that we would evaluate. Fairness frames the way that we would evaluate the 1AC in the first place. For example, if the round is already structurally skewed, you cannot determine who is winning his role of the ballot. This is not an argument that the text comes first, but rather a procedural question. That debate must include some type of procedural limits and fairness constraints, because without that, it's literally impossible to evaluate his role of the ballot. He can win 100% of the argument that his role of the ballot is true in the abstract, but those two framing issues, that is not relevant in terms of your ballot. Now, the only thing that I have to do is win internal links to fairness, extend the ground standard that first of all, extend the extra topicality standard. There are no I-meets on my interpretation. The app is clearly extra topical because it gets offense for reading the story and not just defending the resolution. What that means is that it's impossible for the negative to predict his advocacy. That is a conceded internal link to fairness. Now, you have a couple arguments. The first is that you can treat it in a viscous way and that the app is honey. First of all, if you do not understand 100% of what this argument means, you do not have jurisdiction to vote on it. The fairness voter is very clearly articulated where this argument is literally a 1 second blip, as are a lot of the other arguments in the last week. Second is that I embrace a majoritarian perspective. No, There's no reason that is true. I'm not going for the textuality arguments or the arguments that you have to defend the state. I'm just going for the notion of procedural fairness, which is key to minoritarianism, because those people cannot even participate in debate if they are excluded in the first place. For example, small school debaters, in novice debaters coming from poor schools who do not have the resources to cut a bunch of case makes would be screwed over if the app does not actually defend a topical advocacy, because the limits on impact would obviously screw them over. You decide, you can see that topicality is a reason to drop the debater. Now, the argument, the answer to the Smith argument and the Boggs argument do not apply. They just say that our interpretations are compatible on those levels. He has literally no responses to the fairness argument. It's game over on T.
Okay, I have how much seconds? 45 seconds? Is that it?
55.
55, thanks. Okay. Order is F T the pick cap K. F T pick cap K. Same order of the F as last time. Anybody not ready?
Not ready.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Okay. Starting the rule about. Cool. Okay, cool. Extend the rule about this space before who has performed the methodologically proliferate text will assemble a series in the academic space. This conceded both species. He conceded the resolutions established constantly spending sentences. No interpreting text given privilege. This means that this frames the way in which you view the writing. He also conceded this frame the way in which you jurisdiction of the entirety of the ballot, which means that you should view this resolution first and foremost as the question of established whether or not he is dissent does not matter. The point which this is a norm to claim about the way that things work. If things work this way, it makes no argument as to why you can solve it a different way, which means that you should prefer my norm of contextualization. This also means that it is necessary to critique academic spaces. He's conceded this controls interlinked to the question of actually being able to create any effective change, because academic spaces can only be critiqued through the imposition of non-dominant narratives to the way he's also conceded that's the score 13 evidence. He's also conceded the white and Haldrich evidence. He's also conceded the most analysis I make here that the F is neither literary nor critical. We impose upon the text, for example, the analysis I made in cross-text, that rather than imposing it upon us, or we impose it on us rather than imposing on it, it opens space to becoming a difference. He's conceded the idea that we can actually become topical, or become negative, or become even as alternative is necessarily predicated on the idea of opening space to becoming able to actually do those things. So I can totally interlink that question. The negative, or the affirmative is uniquely key. Then go to the top of the F. He's conceded the Glenn and Boggs analysis I make. You can extend this here. The Glenn evidence indicates that the Kafka is both the emphasis of laws, formally secret laws that exist only in relationship. The Boggs evidence indicates the laws not all come to be she because it is tied to our desires. That means the laws exist everywhere and it is insufficient to understand power or binaries. Something that exists there. That means that the law is already within the space of the debate, which means that you should again give this bolstering as to why you should vote affirmative on the roll of ballot then on the T debate. Starting on his overview, if you didn't fairly, like, this flows on fairness. We have competing views of what they did, but he's conceded the 1AC framing on the question of fairness. Fairness can only actually happen because the dominant narrative is happening in the 1AC, which means that we control the interlink. The only minoritarian argument that I say that he's minoritarian or majoritarian. He said there's no reason it's true. I do not defend the idea of the state. One, that is severance of your interpretation. Severance is bad because it skews to our strategy because he can kick out a part of his interpretation but go for all of it. He cannot go for fairness off its under interpretation without defending his interpretation, which means that is probably the reason you should not even vote on T2. It doesn't matter. Your argument that I am unfair is under the same argument. The idea that I am unfair is exactly the kind of understanding of majoritarianism that says that this particular reading of the topic is something that is bad. Our argument is that minoritarianism would not say that it's bad, nor that it is essential and necessary because there's no other way to actually interact with the topic when you are a minoritarian, which means that this is a terminal defense against question of TV. That means I'm not only topical, but even if it is not topical, under the rule of ballot and established theory, it is uniquely necessary, and there is no other alternative to the affirmative, which means that my framing is going to be offensive to the question. Also, he says that the app is not topical as possible to predict, but he's conceded that we are not abstraction. The text of white and Haldrich evidence indicates that he concedes indicates that we are a kind of imposition on the text which allows us to solve. Pick. He did dissent about things, but didn't answer my answers on Riker 11. He conceded that one, his argument is only the discretion allows choice, but it's a false pretense within the criminal justice system. He says that you do not solve the root cause, and it's nonsensical, but he's conceded the Boggs and gun evidence I do that said that the breaking down materiality allows it to kind of break down the system of the state and muddy it. That was actually the argument I made in the 1AR. You should flow that, which means that I muddy the state, which allows us to actually solve the internal link to his offense. His offense is based on the idea of binaries. You just create that. This is non-unique. Non-unique's all of this. Then on the cat K. I'm going into the permutation of the cap K. It doesn't really matter if he wins the cap K because he's conceded too much affirming and perm do both. Understanding the academics from the affirmative position, he's conceded the scorch analysis. I make that indicates that the understanding of academics, specifically academics, can only come from the affirmative. He's also conceded. He said that there are two link arguments, not cyclical understand materialism. I focus on fluidity, but you don't articulate this is uniquely linked this as to my permutation. My permutation that we should understand the academics from the affirmative, which means we understand materiality through the idea of fluidity, which allows us to understand both things. That is why it's also crossed by the arguments from T of why viscidity is good. That kind of combination is something that's productive.
They're like, ah!
What did he need you for?
Nothing, I just grabbed her hand.
Calls it mass hurt.
Sorry.
Oh, excuse me. Excuse me. Here we go.
You ever explain the 4 reasons over fairness? Like, why fairness first? You did? No. I was surprised you didn't understand any of the chords. Yeah. I feel like he was nobody good. I still understand that after yeah. Let's see, I tried was weird. You wasted so much paper. Actually, really did. But yeah, thanks, Nick. 4 off. Nah, man. 4 off. Engage the app, man.
It's not that flow either. It's definitely way more.
Way better. No. What?
Hey, can I see that impact card?
No shit. Yes. Did it? Yes.
Definitely not that.
Thank you.
That would case, like, in
And there's still 2 judges in here who have not submitted, right?
That's us.
You do? Okay. Okay.
Wow. Are you submitted?
Yeah, I'll be really good.
We have a decision. Hey, all, there's a decision in this room. Everyone come back. There's a decision. Sorry.
Making his way downtown, walking fast, people passing him.
No, so I laughed this time. It's really awkward.
No, that's right. Congrats to both debaters for making it to the quarterfinal round of the Apple Valley tournament. It's a 2-1 decision for the affirmative from Millard North.
I didn't really do too much thinking on this one. I think you only have defense on the pick, and that's bad. You should have gone for the perm or some kind of offense. Pretty much all you say is I can solve the net benefit with the extension of the Bog evidence, and I rebev, and it's pretty good. But I think you don't solve the entirety of it. The 2-NR framing is pretty good. He's like, I only need a risk of a link to this, a risk of a DA, and I will be comparatively better on your framework. Jury nullification is binary, but jury discretion is not. It's more fluid, better conception of assemblages. It's really a very basic argument that you never actually answer the thesis of the pick, which is just that the word or the idea of nullification is binary and discretion is not. I think you also could have gone for, well, I think the perm argument was pretty good because in the 1AR you were like fluid interp of the text. The entire AF justifies a perm to this, which I thought was pretty true. And then you also should make a performance DA and say like there's an entire component of the AF that you just saying do the AF does not solve. And if you had just said I got a story, you didn't read it, then that whole discussion in cross-ex just was not relevant in this debate, which I thought was kind of odd. I thought a little bit about the extension of the AF, but at the end of the day, if you're not telling me why the advantages that you're extending to the AF are not solved by the pick, I think that burden is back on you, flips back to you when he reads a pick and says he solves the entirety of the AF to prove why he doesn't. That's all I got.
Cool.
I guess I could go next. I think that the problem for me with the pick argument is I think that the app in this particular context.
All the ballots are in. We ask that you wrap up oral critiques and head to the award ceremony in the gymnasium.
Screw up, just do it.
Yeah.
I didn't vote negative on the pick because I think that there's a different interpretation or understanding of nullification. I think that that's the thesis of the affirmative, that words aren't absolute or words should not be interpreted in an objective manner. So like your argument that jury nullification necessarily means a binary is answered by the affirmative because the affirmative is kind of like, it's not so much a question of what the word means, but the way in which we interpret the word or what we make the word mean. So it's kind of like his argument that the text doesn't impose itself upon us, we impose ourselves upon the text. And so I thought this argument like kind of pretty clearly answered the pick because he says that it solves the or controls the interlink because of the way in which we interpret particular words and how we take that into account for when we assemble different images or assemble different understandings of reality. So that's why I didn't really look to the pick argument. I guess I thought that you would have won the pick argument if you had went harder on these procedural questions. So like the ways in which the AF literally just says I'm everything but nothing at the same, like there's no like stasis point for the affirmative. So I think if you go harder on like the T argument for like why there's no stasis point for the affirmative, like you should have just went straight up with the topicality portion of T, right? And just been like, there's no stasis point for me to challenge what the affirmative actually does, right? Like even if he wins his criticism that we should start from the bottom up, it's still a question of whether I can engage and problematize his particular conception of the term nullification, right? Because like there should be like some understanding of something in the affirmative that you can garner disads off of. I think that that's kind of why it was a mistake to go for extra topicality because I don't think your procedural arguments are as strong in the extra topicality flow as strong as they could be on the topicality flow itself, which is why I think you shouldn't have read topicality as a framework question, but more so just a straight up topicality question. Rather than being like, it's more advantageous to talk about the state and materiality, you should have been straight up, this AF is not fair, right? In terms of topicality. And I think that that would have been a more persuasive way to win my ballot. But I think that the affirmative is just winning his story about the ways in which we should start from the bottom of interpreting text rather than allowing a text to interpret us. And I think that this kind of like not only answers T, but I also think that the problem with the cap argument is A, you can see the role of the ballot. I call for the impact card to see what the impact would be back to the role of the ballot, but I think that the impact card is not really well warranted at all, but also there's no analysis as to why it would prevent a different interpretation of text. It's not so much a question of just generic becoming, but becoming in the context of like text and the way in which we interpret text. And I think that he does a pretty good job of co-opting a lot of like your performance arguments in the anti-blackness critique. It's just like a good point of reference for me to be like, this is a question of the intrinsic aspect of debate, which is the resolution and different aspects of the debate that we interpret, right? So I think that this is a pretty good answer to the T-flow as well, because it's kind of like, how do we interpret what is fairness? How do we interpret what a debater ought to do in particular areas? How do we interpret what is jurisdiction? How do we interpret what a judge does, right? Should be from the viewpoint of a particular person rather than an objective view, right? For us to assemble different ideas of our identity, right? And I think that if you just like straight up impact on that, like, no, there should be a stasis point for the affirmative. I don't really care about fluidity. It's more so a question of like whether I can test the affirmative or not. Then I think you're in a little bit of a better place because then I feel more comfortable voting on this pick argument. Because then I think that yes, nullification would necessarily cause a binary, but because you let him get away with this idea that we should interpret text, not allow text to interpret us, right, without any kind of like theoretical reason that he should be held accountable for like what the word actually means, right? I know you kind of go for like this ground argument where it's like it's the only way for the negative have access to ground, but that's more so a question of like the representation of the word, right, rather than like us interpreting the word differently, right? And so I think that if you just like go deeper into that kind of analysis, like having a stasis point for the negative, I think that you're in a better place for this pick argument.
Yeah, I mean, I just said largely in a similar way. I think that you're like really far behind on the only flow that gets any down at all in the kappa. So I think like him winning like the role of ballot and the way that we actually like fluidly interpret text clearly takes care of the T debate because I think the arguments coming out of the 2AR they're talking about like he controls the controlling power when it needs to be topical, how to understand the resolution. I think you just jump to any point. You just go really hard with the Terrence first up and don't go over the implications about like what it means to constitute a violation on the T debate, which I think you make fair.
So what is the reason why the interp doesn't matter?
So it's not that the interp doesn't matter. It's just that like the interp is like infinitely mutable because
Okay, so it's just fluidity means there's no interp.
Different different understandings, like different interpretations of the interpretation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, you could have a minoritarian understanding of the interpretation, which is what we should affirm. And the idea is that like structurally you see as antithetical. You could probably create offense for yourself, Grant, on the roll of the ballot through immunity. I get you're crunched in the 1AR, but there's just like it's definitely not consistent with the assemblage theory. So I think on the pick debate, I think that I agree with Christian's like interpretation of how you generate the offense, but I also think that like the response he's setting out on the roll of the ballot about how this assemblage theory necessarily like muddies governmental water, and like the idea of this absolutely fluid means one that there's not ever the risk that you like the discursive offense that you say that you need to get, because the idea that if it's like absolutely
Fluid anyway, yeah, that makes sense.
then and then two also like even if I don't care about the discursive stuff materially solves the so if you want to keep going.
No, that makes sense.
Okay.
I got it.
Okay. No, okay.
Thanks, y'all.
Yes, awards, they're happening. You should